Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's bestride.com Facebook Live. And today we're going to count down the 5 things that you need to know before you buy your next car. My name's Eliana Raggio and I'll be your moderator today. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to the guy who has all the answers, Tyson Jominy. He's the Vice President of Data and Analytics at a little company you might have heard of, J.D. Power. He advises OEMs on pricing and incentives for new and used car sales. And prior to joining J.D. Power in 2009, Tyson held positions at Ford Motor Company and Nissan North America. Tyson, thank you so much for being here with us today. I am so excited to do another broadcast with you. And I'm just going to let all of you out there know Tyson, I have a nickname for him. I call him the dude with the data. And we have a lot of things to cover today, don't we? So, Tyson, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. We always have so much fun. So it's going to be great.
It is going to be great. And by the way, this is bestride.com first. Usually when we have, 5 things you should know or 10 things you should do, and we count up. This time we're counting down. It's our first countdown. I'm very, very excited about that. And, this is actually a first for Tyson Jominy here at bestride.com. But Tyson, you and I have known each other a while, and I asked you to do this broadcast with me because you, being who you are and where you work, you have incredible data and insight into the auto industry. And it's data and insight that are absolutely relevant to consumers, especially those in need of a new vehicle. And whether car shoppers know it or not, a lot has changed since the last time we've all bought a car, all of us, like within the last 12 months. A lot. So, Tyson, before we get into your awesome countdown on 5 things you need to know before you buy your next car, can you just try and put it into perspective for all of us how seismic this shift is within the auto industry? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate it?
1 to 10, we're dialing it up to 11 here. We're spinal tapping out because things have changed so dramatically. It used to be that, you would start your research online and you'd look up and find the car and find a dealer, find several cars and spend all day Saturday shopping for a car. We used to have this list and it was chronological. That's gone. Everything's been blown up now. It's a brand new day. And so much has changed and we can kind of run through that. But it's a brand new world.
Yes. As a matter of fact, we tried to use this graphic that JD Power had put together on how it used to be to buy a car. Do we have that graphic real fast? We'll put it up. There it is. Right. All right. So, audience, if this looks familiar to you, I'm here to let you know, and Tyson will agree with me. That's not what you can expect the next time you buy a car. And we're going to cover the 5 things that you do need to know because most of this stuff isn't going to happen. It's a totally different world out there. Yeah. A whole new world. Oh my God, I'm singing. I'm so excited. All right, Tyson, should we get to it? Let's talk about those changes that consumers are going to see this time around. And we're going to dive into that countdown. So if you're ready, let's start off. Number 5. Do it.
Number 5. Expand your search. Normally, the way we used to do it, you'd find a dealer and it would be, fairly close to your house. Right now finding a vehicle is tough. It's pretty difficult. And the industry normally had, 3 to 4 million units on the ground throughout the country.
Units. That's auto speak for cars.
Right. 3 to 4 million cars on the ground. Only new cars. Not counting used cars. Just new cars with 3 to 4 million in a typical month. And so, as a consumer, you would go over and find the dealership and test drive a car. And if you like that car, you had 20 to choose from of that model, right? Color, trim. You had a number of choices to decide what you wanted after you chose the car. Well, we don't have that kind of inventory anymore. So first, you need to expand your search geographically. You need to go beyond 25 miles or so. And as a matter of fact, consumers now are driving on average 10 miles further to their dealership than they were pre-pandemic. So the distance consumers are going is pretty far. And it's not just that. The number of consumers that are going really far, 50 miles or more, it's up by 1/3 the number that are doing that. And so consumers are going very far to find a vehicle. And it used to be that sometimes consumers would travel a really long way to get a great deal. Now they're traveling a really long way just to find the car they want. So that's kind of one way to expand your search. The second one is you probably need to go beyond your current automaker. Your favorite vehicle. If you're a Ford person or a Chevy person or a Toyota or Honda or BMW, what have you. You may have to look at a competitor product like you've never thought before, because where you find inventory, it may be that other vehicle that maybe in the past you considered but didn't get. So there's a number of ways that you're going to really have to expand your search, and just know that if you find one vehicle in one part of the country, maybe it's going to be difficult to get a good deal right now. So tailor your negotiation strategy accordingly.
Interesting. Okay. So when you say expand your search, we're not even just talking about location wise.
Yeah.
We're talking open your mind to other possibilities, Is that right?
Yeah, right. Expand your mind, Square. You gotta go broad right now. You gotta think big to find what you're looking for.
And this is because there is less cars for people to choose from right now. And that's new and used?
Yeah, I mean you're seeing it on both sides, new and used. It's extremely hard to find a vehicle. The used market relies on the new market for their inventory. After someone's owned a car for 2 or 3 years, they bring that back to market. Well, with fewer new car sales, you're going to find fewer used vehicles traded in, and therefore the ball starts rolling downhill. So there's a lot of shortage of inventory, both new and used.
Very interesting. Okay, so audience, you may have heard of this inventory shortage that the auto industry is experiencing right now. That doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of cars out there. There is a car out there. Just might have to do a little bit more research. And that's why we're here, right? Bestride.com is a great place to do your research. Yep, shameless plug. All right, here we go. So, anything else we need to know about tip number 5 before we move on to
No, let's continue the countdown.
countdown? Number 4. What do we have for number 4, Tyson?
Really, you got to get multiple quotes for your trade right now. I mean, in the old days, we would say, just take your car to the dealership and get your trade-in offer from the dealer you're buying from. But I got to tell you, these days, you get a lot of quotes out there. So look around there too. And I'm going to say this, and right now, within 30 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes, you could have 5 or 6 offers for your trade-in from all these new e-commerce startups that are out there. Whether it's Carvana, CarMax, Vroom, others. I mean, there's about maybe 10 or so of these companies where they'll give you a quote for your car sight unseen in seconds online. And so you could go there and get a number of quotes for your trade-in, because as mentioned, inventory of used vehicles is so tight that most of these companies are so desperate for vehicles. They're paying top dollar. And I'll say it's not just trading in your vehicle. A lot of consumers out there that lease never think to look at their trade-in value for their lease. And right now there is huge equity in leasing. So if you have a lease and your lease is coming due, about 4 to 6 months before you're going to turn in your lease, start the process of going out there and getting quotes for your vehicle and finding out where you could trade it in, because you may find that your trade-in value is worth something far below market value. So you have an arbitrage opportunity to buy something cheap and instantly sell it for more money. Or if you want, you can just buy that vehicle out, like a lot of consumers are doing. About a third of all lessees now are buying out their leases and staying in their existing car and keeping it. So that's an option. So you got a lot of choices now that we've never had before, and particularly on the lease side. Don't just turn in your vehicle. You have a huge asset.
I do want to caution people too, and Tyson, back me up on this. There are certain manufacturers now who won't take, or you can't turn in your, let's just throw out some names. You can't turn in your Ford at the Lexus store, for instance.
Right.
There are certain places. So certain manufacturers like, no, if you're going to turn in your lease car, we want it back. Send it back to us. So is that true, Tyson? You don't have to name manufacturer names, but to just make sure that when you turn in your lease, if that's the way you go, to make sure that you're doing it the right way.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eliana. You've got to ensure that you can do this, because the automakers, have said we want those cars back. It's such a valuable asset right now that they don't want anyone else having that first dibs on your car if you're going to get rid of it. So there are stipulations from about 8 or so automakers that say you can't do this just on your own, but you still can buy it out and then flip it. Just takes an extra step. You're gonna have to register the vehicle, take a few extra steps there, but you still have the potential to make more profit. And even those automakers, if you find out that you have a vehicle from one of those that they won't let you trade it in, that probably means their dealers are really starved for vehicles. And so bring those back there. You may get your best value from the dealer. I mean, that could be possible too.
Oh, we have all kinds of things coming in over here. Okay. Brandon says he's taking it a step further. So we talked about manufacturers saying, no, we want it. Can you actually trade your lease to a different dealer than the one that you got it from?
Yeah, most likely, yes. There may be one or two out there that would say, no, you can't go to a different dealership. But in almost every instance, yes, within the same make, you could bring it back to a different one. But again, just check the fine print, make one phone call, save yourself the time, do the legwork before you get in your car and drive over somewhere.
Yes, and those I know we talked a lot about leases, but trade-ins, used vehicles have never been more valuable. Isn't that right, Tyson? You kind of have a running status on this throughout the year, don't you?
Yeah, I mean what consumers are paying for used vehicles at retail. It closely mirrors what's going on in the wholesale market for used vehicles. Where auctions, those big vehicle auctions that you probably have seen in your town somewhere. So those prices are going up, and that really is going to help you as a consumer. You're getting a lot more for your trade, which will help offset some of the higher prices that we're seeing because of the inventory shortages. So it works well, and that's a good tailwind that consumers have right now is the value of their trades has gone up so much.
I love it. Okay, so this is wonderful. You've already hit us with 2 fantastic tips. We are already at tip number 3 on our countdown. So what is next?
That's right. Well, I got to say it. I think my mom is listening to this. Actually, our moms were right.
Hi, Mom.
You snooze, you lose. Right? You got to plan ahead here. In this market, again, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, consumers in the U.S. we're so used to just strolling onto a dealership lot and just finding whatever it is that we're looking for there. That's not the way it is right now. You need to plan ahead. It's crucial that you do plan ahead. And in many cases, you may have to order a vehicle and it may take 6 to 8 weeks to arrive. And so you can't wait until you don't have a car to show up and expecting to get one. So you need to plan ahead and work with a dealer. And if they don't have in stock what you're looking for, they can order it for you and be in again in a month and a half, 2 months or so. It's not just plan ahead for your own benefit, but also some automakers like Ford now have incentives that only apply if you order a vehicle. So Ford will give you money if you pre-order a vehicle with them, and that when it comes in, you've got the vehicle, but you can only get the incentive having pre-ordered a car. And that's new. Again, like if you've been in Europe or you're familiar with the European market, you're saying, oh, this is how it always is in Europe. Well, it's new to Americans. It's new to the U.S. car buyer. It's a much different world out there now. The other thing I would say about planning ahead is, we used to say, oh, you had to go to the dealership on the last Saturday of the month to get the best deal, and that's when they would deal the most, right?
Well, yeah, and we're in Q4. I mean, we're in the tail end of the year, and I think we've all been programmed as consumers, go at the end of the month, go at the end of the year, you'll get the best deal. Is that the case this year?
It's really not. As a matter of fact, we're seeing the sales pattern shift toward weekday sales. Consumers are not going on the weekend, and they're not going at the end of the month. We're seeing sales be pulled ahead because there's not great deals to be found at the end of the month. Dealers aren't motivated to sell those vehicles like automakers used to give them, money to sell more vehicles at the end of the month that they would pass on to consumers, and the deals got so good. Well, that's all gone. So now we're not seeing end of month deals and end of month sales action going on. And like you said, we're not seeing end of year action. Usually Q4 is when you could find some very discounted vehicles, like the outgoing model year. Who wants to buy a 2021 model year at the end of 21? So we would discount them pretty heavily. Well, nowadays, inventory is turning in 3 weeks at dealerships. So when an automaker launches a new model, The old model is gone almost instantly, and the new one is right there, and there's almost no changeover. I mean, it's almost instantaneous. Therefore, the deals aren't there, and the incentives aren't there at the end of the month and the end of the model year.
Wow. So this reminds me of a quote from my favorite prognosticator, Yoda. You must unlearn what you have learned. And
Mhm.
so it is a whole different way to think about buying a car. So I guess the question that any consumer would ask right now is, well, should I wait? If you could wait, would you recommend waiting? So I mean, how long is this going to last? How long could it
Yeah.
possibly last, right?
I mean, we think it's going to be like this all the way through the end of 22. So some things may come and go. Some automakers may get inventory sooner than others. I don't really see the benefit of waiting. I mean, if you need a vehicle, I don't think it's going to be materially better 6 months from now. I think it's going to be a very similar market to what we see now. Last year the industry lost 2 million sales, 2.5 million sales. This year we're on track to lose about another 2 million. So we have upwards of 4.5 million consumers of various types sitting on the sideline waiting for a car. And the second that it comes in, those vehicles are turning. 54% of vehicles are turning within a week right now of arriving at the dealership. That's like, the truck comes up with loaded with cars and trucks on the back of the trailer, and they're unloading it straight to consumers. And half of consumers are basically there waiting for their car to arrive the day it gets there. And they're going home with it within a week. So it doesn't look like it's going to get materially better anytime soon. So I don't see, on average, that waiting would do anyone any benefits. If you need a vehicle, use these tips to navigate the waters, but it's not going to get materially better probably in the next 15 months or so.
No, but as you said just a few minutes ago, people are, I mean, I don't want to say settling, but they're not landing sometimes on their first choice of a car because it's not available. But if you could order a car and get it exactly the way you want it, and if you could plan ahead and wait those few weeks to get the car that you want,
Right.
I mean, that sounds like a win-win. Oh, we do have another question that came in from Paul. He says, oh no, from Brandon. Okay. Do trade-in quotes change too? Is there a best time to request a quote? Great question, Brandon. Brandon's got all the good questions. Tyson, what do you know about quotes from people? And I feel like, the quotes are pretty high as well. I mean, people, they want to win your trade-in, don't they?
Right. And it would work closely with the normal sales process, which is, at the end of the month, dealers may get more desperate to make a sale and could put more on a trade. But again, we're seeing that all breaking now. So traditionally, the rules are thrown out of how we would buy a car, and trade-in values now, again, it's going to reflect more the broader demand for used vehicles, and it's so high. And this would apply to anyone not even looking to get a car. If you have a car you don't need, if you're sitting on an extra car, now is a great time to divest of that car, get top dollar for a trade of a vehicle that you weren't really using. My son just turned 16 this week, and so there's now 3 drivers, only 2 cars in my house. And I'm the odd man out working in the auto industry. I'm the only one without a car now. So I could use your car. If you don't want your car, please hit me up.
Tyson wants a minivan. I'm just going to let you know and spoil it. Okay. Wow. You are sharing some really good stuff today, Tyson. I knew you would. All right. So I can't believe it, but we're already at number 2 on our countdown.
Right.
So we have the 2 top tips for you. So number 2, this is a big one too.
Number
Tyson,
2.
What do you got for us?
Where's the time going? We're all the way down to 2 already.
I know.
This one is kind of big because we need to change what we're buying and how. And I mean, what that means is with this work from home, it's not a phenomenon anymore. It's permanent, right? How many of us are going to be permanently working from home or in a hybrid model? And so what we used to do, I mean, for most of us as consumers, we kind of had one vehicle to commute in. And then, a family type vehicle. And it was like that commuting vehicle, many people would lease it. And right now, the kinds of leases that we're seeing have greatly evolved. I mean, the 12,000 mile a year lease, that's been the gold standard for decades.
Yeah.
That's now gone. It's
What?
10,000 miles. That's what you see advertised. That's the number one form of leasing now is 10,000 miles. So you can downgrade your lease and save money. So that's kind of one,
They're
and
doing
that's
that because people are staying at home more with the hybrid workforce that we have now.
yeah. Leasing in general is really far down. I mean, it used to be about 25% of the industry. Now it's down to 20%. So a lot of consumers are passing on going back and getting another lease, and they're either buying out their existing lease or they're in some cases doing without an extra car. But leasing is down, and the kinds of leases we're getting are different. And not only that, the kinds of cars that we're buying are different. A lot of consumers now are starting to consider electric vehicles really for the first
Yes.
time. This year, the sales of EVs have taken off this year. In fact, the growth rate in 2021 is the strongest growth rate we've ever seen for EVs. Even as they were a much smaller part of the market when growth was easy, it's accelerating because we've got a lot of great choices out there now. Of course, vehicles like the Volkswagen ID4 and the Ford Mustang Mach-E, and some new players like Rivian, and not to mention, of course, the Tesla models that are out there that are fantastic. So there's a lot of EV choices. And because we're not driving as many miles as we used to, that kind of vehicle may work for your life. And you're going to find, if you get that vehicle, a much lower total cost of ownership. The cost of maintaining and servicing the vehicle and the fuel cost, you're not buying gasoline at $4 a gallon like it is here. You're charging your vehicle at home. If an EV can work for you, it would be a great time to consider one.
Oh, and they have tax credits too. I know
Yeah.
because we did a bestride.com Facebook Live on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying this kind of goes with expand your search, open your mind. So open your mind to new possibilities. And EV, if an electric vehicle, you might not have thought about it before. It might be the perfect fit for you right now. Who knows? What other things can people look for in order to stick with this tip number 2 about change what you buy and how?
Yeah, and one thing you may have to change, you may be forced to, but if you're looking for a used vehicle, the 2 to 3 year old used vehicle has kind of disappeared. As mentioned, it's so hard to get those vehicles. Leasing is down. Consumers are buying out their leases; they're not returning them. The off-lease 2 to 3 year old vehicle has been the backbone of the used vehicle industry for so long, and most of those have disappeared by now. In fact, it's things are shifting very quickly to 5 and 6 year old vehicles. So if you're looking for a used car, think 5 to 6 years old, because that's now the sweet spot for used vehicles. And you may be saying, like, 5 years, that's 80,000, 100,000 miles. That sounds like a lot, but quality, as measured by JD Power, voice of the customer, has never been better in this industry. So a vehicle that has 80,000, 100,000 miles, it's not even at its half-life yet. It's kind of just getting going. Vehicles can last so long. So you may have to also consider, an older vehicle than maybe you've considered in the past.
I mean, and let's talk about that because the average life of a vehicle is now just around 12 years. Yes?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, and I know we all love a new car, that new car smell, but uh, if you want to really, change what you buy and how you buy it, and stick with this tip number 2, which is a very valuable tip, you might need to look into a pre-owned car. And don't forget there's certified pre-owned cars, like Tyson says, if you can find them, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
man, you are bringing the fire, Tyson. I love this. Anything else before we move on to tip number 1?
We're number one. We're here. We made it.
Okay, so this is it. Tip number 1 from JD Power. What you need to know before you buy your next car. Tyson, hit me with it.
Go digital. Go
What?
digital. Like, do all this from your house. Do it from your couch, your kitchen table. Car buying used to be that you would spend all day Saturday at a dealership, and you'd be there, in the F&I office, the finance office in the back, the little room, the box. You'd be there until it was dark, and you'd go home and you'd be all excited that you had a new car. And by the time you got home, your enthusiasm was sapped. You can't even see the car because it's nighttime. It's just like, I want to go to bed, get a drink. It's not like that anymore. You don't have to do that. You can go fully digital now, which is just fantastic. I did it with my last vehicle. I did every step except the actual signing, which in my state, you have to sign in person. But I did everything prior to that. And I signed the documents on my kitchen table. It took about 5 minutes at my kitchen. They gave me the new keys and they drove away my old car and left me with a new one.
I mean, this definitely started during the lockdowns.
Right.
Dealerships were trying to figure out a way to still make sure that car shoppers could still get a car. And so they figured out a way to do it. And as I like to say, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? So now it's here and you should take advantage of it. So you can find a dealer who you can do all of the shopping online. You can do the payment calculator online. You can do the financing without coming into the dealership. You can negotiate that without stepping foot in the dealership. And depending on what state you're in, just like Tyson said, you could electronically sign without ever stopping at the dealership, or you might have to actually put ink on paper. There are certain states, like Tyson state and actually my state, where that needs to be done. But many states don't need that. And
Yep.
yes, there are dealerships out there that have at home test drives and at home deliveries. It's a beautiful new world out there, isn't it, Tyson?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, at one point during the peak of the pandemic, I had a recall performed in my driveway too. It's amazing what we can do now. For millennials are now the number one buying group in the auto industry, and they're 36% of sales. Baby boomers were number one; they're now only 28% of sales. And so this new group has the expectation. Millennials, they don't want to go to a dealership and spend all day. They want to do it at home. Well, the good news is, as you said, the pandemic gave us the impetus to do it, the tools to do it. We had to go do it during the pandemic, and now all dealers have the capability of doing it. And many of them are still very happy to do it. And as a consumer, you're thrilled. You get to do the whole thing from your house.
I love it. As a matter of fact, we've been tracking these kinds of things at bestride.com. So if you're interested in trying to find a dealer who has any of those things, on bestride.com, you can actually search for dealers in your zip code or wherever who have at home test drives and at home deliveries and that kind of thing. And it's actually, Tyson, wouldn't you agree? It's actually becoming the norm, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly.
Absolutely. All right. So we went through 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Holy moly, our very first countdown. Tyson, you were amazing. You did awesome. Before I let you go, Tyson, any last advice? I mean, you're a JD Power. I gotta ask you. I mean, you're all about consumer satisfaction. So, what last advice, if any, do you have for consumers out there who are shopping for a car, that need a car, who maybe don't want to wait until the end of 2022 to get one?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, as mentioned, do your research. Go to bestride.com. Go to jdpower.com and find out what others that have owned the vehicle have said about the vehicles you're looking at. Do your dealership reviews and make sure that who you're dealing with is somebody you're going to want to get to know for several years in the future. Again, as mentioned, check out your trade values. Make sure you do, especially lease consumers, don't just trade in your car without finding out how much you have in it. That alone may be worth thousands of dollars to people that are listening to this. And finally, be open to other makes, other models, other EVs, and other kinds of vehicles. It's a brand new world out there, and good luck shopping. I think you guys are going to find a great vehicle right now. Vehicles have never been better. They've got high technology, fantastic MPG, great safety. I mean, it's a great time to get a car. So good luck, everyone.
Thank you so much. That is Tyson Jominy from JD Power. I love it. And you know what? This is not going to be the last time we see you on a Facebook Live. Let me just tell you right now, definitely be back. So keep an eye out for that. Now, Tyson, you just sit there while I talk to people about bestride.com, Facebook Live. We have another one coming up in just a few weeks. And like Tyson said, he said they're fully packed with all these great new features. Guess what? We have a Facebook Live about that, and it's our next one. Most people don't understand what all these new features do, if they want them, or even if they're worth the money that they're being asked to pay for them. So, do you know, not you, Tyson, but do you know the difference between drive assist and active safety driving and automated driving? Yeah, I know it might be confusing. They might be the same things. You know what? We're going to find out because we've called in an automotive expert that has all the answers and is going to help you understand all these automotive innovations so that you can decide what features you're going to want in your next ride. So tell all your car shopping friends, put it on your calendar. It's going to be Tuesday, November 23rd, right before Thanksgiving. That's right. 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And all you have to do is bestride.com. We have a Facebook page so you don't miss any of this automotive awesomeness. We'd love to see you there. All right. So speaking of Best Ride, yes, it's the smartest, easiest way to find a car online. So fact, 1 in 3 people actually don't know what vehicle they want to buy. But you know what? Bestride.com can help you. We're going to show you numerous vehicles to consider, help you narrow it down, do your research, as Tyson said. Tip number 5, right? Narrow down your research to the one that's right for you. You can search by body style. You can connect with local car dealers. You can read car reviews and industry news and other auto related news. And you can search by new, used, certified, pre owned. You can search in your zip code. And like Tyson said, it's a great time to buy a car. Best Ride can help. Search millions of cars. Find your best ride. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding our broadcast and our topics, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me directly. Again, my name is Eliana Raggio. You can email me directly at eliana@bestride.com. On behalf of Tyson Jominy and the rest of the amazing crew at JD Power and my incredible coworkers at bestride.com, thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today. And I hope to see you all on another broadcast from your friends over at bestride.com. Take care, everyone. Bye, Tyson. Thank you so much.
Thank you.